Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Catholic Arena podcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about the sad issue of abortion, and in particular, our good friends in Sinn Fein. They're not actually our good friends, but their efforts, their history of colluding with Westminster to bring in abortion into Northern Ireland, and colluding once again to ensure that anyone who wants to prevent the killing of Irish babies will be prevented from doing so with fines of up to £2,500 and possible prison sentence. So here to go through this farce is as usual Augustine. Augustine, how are you doing?
I'm good, Jerome.
Good
Um,
stuff.
yeah, Sinn Féin, it's the the way they're kind of approaching politics at the minute. It reminds me of if you've ever seen Goodfellas, um,
Oh yeah, great film.
Ray Ray Liotta's character, at the
Henry
very
Hill.
end of yeah, at the very end of the film, he is. There's a scene where basically
He's in
he's
witness
off his.
protection, is it?
But before you get to that, well,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's before you get to that, but basically it is, yeah, it's before he gets put in protection, but it's the scene where he's still trying to like manage everything, and he's completely like drugged out of his mind. And Martin Scorsese said when he made the film, one of the things he did was like, he did it almost kind of in real time that he had 15 minutes to go until the cops got there, whatever it was,
Yeah. Yeah.
and in the scene, it's very frantic. When you watch it, you're real anxious that he's basically in his head, he's convinced himself, no, I'm going to get out of this one last time and I have everything under control.
Yeah,
And
he's a million things to do. His babysitter, he has to get her tickets for the flights or something, and his
yeah,
disabled brother, he is making the spaghetti, and then he has to sell the guns to Tommy or whatever Robert De Niro is a character's
yeah,
name. It's a great scene, actually. Yeah.
yeah. That reminds me of Sinn Féin's current approach to politics, that they've convinced themselves that they have thought of everything, and they've convinced themselves that if I just do this, this, and this, and even though I know this is risky and this might, if it goes wrong, end everything, I'll just do it anyways because I figured it all out. And their approach to politics at the minute is like that they are fighting so many different battles at north and south, and even abroad in the states with their lobbies and so on. And they've kind of convinced themselves that they have everything figured out, but I really don't think they do. And it kind of came out today in the news that um, the Irish Language Act they hope to go through isn't going to go through. And they were saying, "Oh, we've been hoodwinked. We shouldn't have trusted the British." It's like, well, you do trust the British because basically you've gone along with them on abortion. And not only did they go along with them on abortion, they basically said, Britain said, "You implement abortion." Westminster said, "You implement abortion," and Britain said, "Sure thing, we'll do that." And everything Sinn Féin does, they say, "Oh, we're doing it for United Ireland. We're doing it for political leverage." So they're saying we're going to have Orange Order marches, um, because that will, it's worth it in the United Ireland. Which it's a totally delusional way of thinking. I mean, you're
Of
seeing
course.
that story on the news that they're going to do that, and in the next breath, you're seeing stories on the news that loyalists are preparing to try to assassinate some of the politicians down here. And abortion kind of fits in with that. They're thinking, okay, we're going to just have the Irish language and this is going to magically fix everything. And it doesn't matter that we're going to be bringing in abortion. Like in the UK, like this will be an abortion regime in the north. It's going to be part of the UK. In the UK, 1 in 4 pregnancies ends in abortion. It's catastrophic, And um, anyway, the bill that came in case people hadn't seen it, was introduced by this particular bill was introduced by the Green Party. And what happened was that ever since abortion was introduced a couple of years ago in the north, it's only kind of slowly been introduced because obviously the north is even though it's a mix of everything, it is more of a religious or traditional society than the rest of the UK. If you can forgive me for saying it's in the UK, but but it is, and um, there's been complaints by Brandon Lewis, who's the Northern Secretary, that abortion has been implemented fast enough. And one of the things that's really gone under the radar is that a lot of the pro-life vigils that have been going on there, some of the abuse they've been getting is horrific, and a lot of it is because a lot of the you know people who are loyal to Sinn Fein have been basically told, okay, you need to go out and stop these people from doing this, because this is going to mess up our Irish Language Act. And so
Yes.
they've been going out and doing that, thinking they were being loyal to the cause or whatever, without really thinking here. Like, these people will go and say, our revenge will be the laughter of our children, and then they're defending the British aborting their children. I don't think they're thinking this through here.
Yes.
And it's so the bill that came in was basically, even though they were the ones being harassed and attacked and so on and so forth, the Green Party brought in a bill that would essentially outlaw anybody from trying to offer sidewalk counseling. Now, sidewalk counseling, which is the American thing, well, it originated from America, which there are women who go for abortions who are really only doing it because they're being coerced into doing it, or out of absolute desperation. And if they were offered an actual choice, these people say they're pro-choice, if these people were offered an actual choice, financially or whatever it was, they would choose to keep the baby. And so this law is going to punish anyone who tries to help them pick the positive choice. And it's also going to punish the pro-life people who just pray. I mean, they just pray. And we've seen
Simply
this is
pray and be silent, and just give
yeah,
witness. They'll be just
yeah,
helpful with. It's funny, the American situation, the sidewalk counseling, as far as I know. Now, of course, America's abortion regime is horrific, um, but they even pro-abortionists in America are tied to the concept of the Second Amendment, which allows for freedom of speech. It's part of the
First
reason
Amendment.
why. First
First
Amendment,
Amendment.
sorry, and
Yeah,
it's
don't get it mixed up with the second.
oh yes, yes, and it was partly. I mean, in a weird tangent, that's how like Larry Flint of Hustler magazine was allowed to. That's why pornography is in America, because it actually went to the Supreme Court, but it was allowed basically because it was determined to be free speech. So free speech can be taken to ridiculous extremes of pornography, but in this case, when it's actually for the ultimate good, to convince someone to save life, it's
Well,
it's sacrosanct in America.
I mean, one thing you have to remember too is that in in the South, as part of Bunrock na Heron, we have freedom of religion here. And in the North, they also have freedom of religion, because that was something that was enshrined in the Good Friday Agreement. So this
Okay.
contravenes the Good Friday Agreement, because you're trying to punish people with either a fine or prison because they're praying in public and you don't like what they're praying about, or they're harming British commercial interests, as in the abortion industry. So, um, I think if they bring some sort of court case, I think they'd have a good chance. But it's the thing, of course, the strangest thing about it all is that Sinn Féin and the SDLP are supposed to be Catholic and nationalist parties, and here they are imposing this against, even though the Green Party come up with it, it is Sinn Féin and the SDLP who are imposing this against Catholics, and also they are imposing it on behalf of Britain. So
Yeah.
it's like they've invented this new type of nationalist unionism, as in, a way to be an Irish nationalist within the structures of unionism. In other words, doing what Westminster tells them, celebrating the Orange Order, but saying, okay, well, we speak Irish, so it's not so bad, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's the same in Scotland. You have the Scottish National Party, and the Scottish National Party are, you know, they'll say they're nationalists, but we've always kind of associated nationalism with, I wouldn't even say conservatism, but just, traditionalism. But in Scotland, they're very progressive, also. And so, yeah, it's a weird new thing that they're basically quote unquote nationalists, but working within the structures of being part of the UK, which doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense on paper. But I think
It's
yeah,
it's a paper thin definition of nationalism, really, which Sinn Fein have.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you know, the last video we did on Fatima, there were people replying saying, very fair video. You give every side kind of their sides, and when people listen to this, they might say, well, what's the Sinn Féin perspective? Well, the Sinn, I mean, are we being unfair to them? But I mean, the Sinn Féin perspective is a united Ireland, at all costs, and is this really, and they've also convinced themselves that they've figured out everything, and you know, they're going to get what they want. I don't think it's going to work like that. They're riding high in the polls down here. They obviously have power in the north to some extent, but I think the damage is going to do to society up here, and the damage is done down down in the south is something that you can't walk back, and it's going to cause a lot of damage over time. I think what needs to happen really is that there needs to be a proper alternative politically in the north, because you have the DUP, um, who are, we're saying this is British abortion, but then you have the DUP, who are a unionist party who want to remain part of the UK, and they're the only party against it. And there was the video of the guy last year outside the church in Ballyfermot, and he it was interesting what he said. He said to the guys who were praying the rosary, he said, "What are you guys, like the DUP or something?" And it was like, what? Why would the DUP be praying the rosary? And
That
but
was an
his
American chap or something, was it?
no, it was the Sinn Féin guy who said it to
Oh, okay.
the Irish guys. Yeah, so the Irish guys praying the rosary, and you're kind of saying to yourself, this is it's a silly way of thinking, and it's a
So,
mistaken
like, I
way of
mean,
thinking.
they're conflating, like, I mean, of course, I mean, the obvious thing is, well, Protestants don't pray the rosary for one thing. He just thought, like, just because he heard somewhere that the DUP are very fundamentalist. Yeah, yeah, it's funny in the Republic of Ireland, a lot of like young liberals have this weird fixation on the DUP or the incarnation of evil.
Yeah, and a
It's
lot of them
funny.
will say, like they were saying tonight, like, "Oh, can't trust the Tories, Tories this, Tories that." But when the Tories say, "Please abort some Irish babies," they're like, "Yeah, cool, no bother."
Yeah, yeah. It's
Um, so
Sinn
I don't.
Féin they're
Yeah,
it's a funny phenomenon. They're definitely riding a wave of discontent with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Um, if I had to place my bets, I mean, like Mary Lou talks a big game about like criticizing this government's policies, but does anyone seriously think if she came into power tomorrow and she was part of like a power sharing arrangement that she wouldn't just behave exactly like the average neoliberal political party that has been ruling Ireland for the past 2 decades?
yeah. I mean, they're kind of, you know, their power and their downfall is nobody knows what they're going to get with them. Um, like we've seen this kind of thing with some of the right wing politicians in um, Europe in recent years. If you look at Le Pen now, I mean, Le Pen is probably, I mean, she's just Mary Lou McDonald, but from France, you know? She's actually gone to that side of politics at this stage. And
Yeah.
like Salvini's another one that he's, a lot of people feel that when he actually got power, he wasn't anything that they expected, you know? So I think with Sinn Féin, even though they're on the left, it might be the same thing. It's a bit like when Obama became president, there were so many people. It was like a blank canvas. People have said his tagline was change. So people just said, well, change. Okay, he's going to change the way I want. But of course, it's not going to be like that. So, but the other thing is that, I mean, with the economic problems we're going to have pretty soon from everything going on, it could be a poison chalice taking power. But that's actually more of a danger, really, because we've seen with other parties. Look at Labour when they took power. it probably suited them to take power when things weren't good because they were able to use the kind of woke stuff then as a distraction. So in some ways, that could be worse. But just on the abortion thing, it's yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's a symptom of a lot of things, and ultimately, you know, there's certain lines I think political parties shouldn't cross, and you just think to yourself, what does it profit Sinn Fein to gain a united Ireland but lose its soul, which is what's happening.
Yes. It wasn't very long ago whenever Sinn Fein spoke up in the Dáil and was critical of the government, some outraged government minister would accuse Sinn Fein of having blood on their hands, and it'd be an argy-bargy in the Dáil. And all that basically came to a complete halt, it seems, when Mary Lou became leader. It's like the media said, okay, change the tack now, lads. Mary Lou's great. No one's allowed to criticize her. No one's allowed to even question or talk about the really problematic, but there's a fair amount of substantial evidence behind the links between organized crime, remnants of former paramilitaries, and even to a lesser degree of seriousness, but still serious, is the problematic link that they have, their on the ground supporters have. For example, when the Irish Freedom Party, they just set up a table in Belfast, and maybe it was naive, but shouldn't any party who be allowed to say give their pitch? They were actually just like their table was destroyed and they were run off by thugs, but there was none of that criticism in the media. Mary Lou is never given a hard time. It's really funny how the media just elevated her as soon as she assumed the leadership.
Yeah, well, I think she's if you think of what, I don't know which politician said it before, that maybe it was Michael McDowell or somebody said that Sinn Féin was not a normal political party. Um, Sinn Féin are just such a wide berth of different people. There's the people on the ground who are fairly old school and stuff, and then there's the actual, the Mary Lou's who are basically just Leo Varadkar but speaks Irish. It's
Private school
it's
educated and all this stuff.
yeah, and so it's I don't know what sort of party they're going to be in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, but if you think of what they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it's been a slow, steady decline on anything they ever held dear, and I don't see why it's going to change into the future. But the North is at a strange time, and I think a lot of the celebrations over the Good Friday Agreement and the assumption of lasting peace, if you think that came 8 years or whatever after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and we see now that was only a temporary reprieve in European peace. In the North, there's so many factors there, that could make you wonder what sort of future it's going to have. And the thing is, abortion in terms of society and its impact, abortion is a massive one because it has so many knock-on effects. And it's one of the things after the repeal of the eighth was people saying, "Oh, we're such an open society now, talk about everything and blah blah blah." People don't talk about it. People don't talk about it. Father Brendan Kilcoyne did a good video on this where he said, actually, people don't talk about it. He said, actually, people don't want to talk about anything about it, how it's done, what happens to the baby after. He says the secrecy is there more than ever now with abortion than it was with pregnancy or whatever before. And so
Yeah,
or
it's
unwanted
true.
pregnancy.
Yeah.
So look, it's a fight, but the thing we have to look at is that the people on the front lines offering help to girl, and we have to, you have to realize that there are people there who are offering help to people, giving them stuff to help them save their children, material stuff, clothes and money and food and whatever, maybe prams and buggies. And, you know, nearly all of these people are Catholic, not all, but nearly all. And so it's just, it's the same in the South. And so it's a real, I think it's a real source of pride. And the church here hasn't really embraced the pro-life stuff yet. One of the reasons, of course, was the government were very clever, and well, maybe it was out of necessity because they can't do anything right. But they put all the abortions in the GPs in the hospitals, to shield protests and so on. But um, I still think pro-life vigils, whether they're in churches or wherever they are, um, could be an important galvanizing thing in the future, as it's been in the States. In the States, the pro-life movement has been a massive galvanizing thing for the church. Some people think it's been divisive and so on. It hasn't really. It's definitely drawn a lot of people to the faith. Um, but look, it's
In spite
one of
of
the
the
mess.
total one-sidedness of the media on this issue.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're close to defeating it in a lot of states, which is incredible. And one of the messages of Fatima we talked about the other day was Russia will spread her errors. And in 1917, abortion was legalized in Russia, and that has been the main error. Um,
The woman, I think that Green Party woman,
Claire
I'm
Bailey.
guessing Claire Bailey. I'm guessing she was Sinn Fein originally because she's a Falls Road woman, so she seems to have those nationalist creds. But she was saying that she was treated horribly when she was standing with her at the Marie Stopes clinic, and she said she was spat on and she was like told that she was a murderer. I'm not sure if those things are true, but one of the things she took offense to as well is she was splashed with holy water. So she's basically equating that, whether she was called a murderer or not. It's just funny how she would how she would like put being splashed with holy water in the same horrific, almost grievous bodily harm category, as that.
But it's, yeah, and it's amazing how nobody's ever around to see any of these things.
Yeah,
It's
it's funny
it's
how that
amazing.
works. Yeah.
It's amazing how you can just accuse anyone of anything if you're in that thing. And the other thing is that Sinn Féin want to be careful that they don't get replaced by that type of politics in the north now, which is just generic Green Party, um, people for profit derivatives, because they're going to start reaching a crossfold of people from all different backgrounds. So
Yeah.
it could come back to bite them. I don't know much about how Ainto are doing in the north. Um, they have potential there, but it's not easy to set up a new party, especially one that's pro-life. So I don't know. It is what it is. We're kind of at the beginning of this. The only thing is that Ireland is normally, you know, way off the curve with a lot of this stuff. So abortion is, coming to an end in the United States, hopefully, and hopefully that happens and sends shockwaves over this way.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in America. It's like they're it's like the liberals are putting all chips on red whatever and just have one final spin of the wheel. That's the way it looks anyway, because I think they're increasingly desperate and um, acting more deranged, kind of like the final scene in Goodfellas, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the thing about abortion is you, you think back to so many things in history where people thought they had everything figured out, and sleight of hand, God, God, God's in control, and miracles happen, and you know, who knows?
Yeah, it's the ultimate injustice, and and it's such a trite criticism. Oh, you just want to force young women to give birth. It's so ridiculous, like their argument. It's just our contention is that it's just wrong, and it's the murder of the most defenseless human being. I mean, on a philosophical, like if there was an open and fair debate in a university setting, pros and for against abortion, and without people screeching on either side, and just a very dispassionate, like, comparison between views. I mean, you can't defend abortion from a philosophical perspective. That's why they always bring emotion into it. They frequently become deranged. They typically resort to accusing you of being sexist or patriarchal or misogynistic. They're not actually capable of reasoned defense of their barbaric view.
Yeah, and I think with science becoming more advanced, it's going to become more undeniable that life begins at conception, and I think that's what's
Peter,
happening in the States, and that's what
Peter
happened
Boylan
here.
said it. He said it on prime time. The cheerleader of abortion in Ireland had to concede that life begins at conception. He probably got his ears torn off after by the Together for Yes people for saying that, but it's on the record.
Yeah, so just pray. That's all we say.
Exactly. It's very important to pray for this. So should we? I'd say it's a pretty good summary. We don't want to keep people too long, so we might just cut it there.
Yeah. Keep the comments coming. Keep subscribing.
Yes, thanks for listening, folks. Augustine, thank you, and we will chat again. Thank you.
Alright guys, thanks for joining me. Just outside St Luke's Chapel here in Pembroke. There's a Sinn Fein delegation there behind me. And if you seen my Facebook Live earlier, talking about how they voted in 40-week abortions, I think there's a few of these guys going to confession. Or if they're not going to confession, they need to be going to confession. There's a whole random mob behind me. You just see them there behind me. Sinn Fein stand outside St Luke's, voted in 40-week abortions. Absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. I went over to every single one of them and I asked, are they there for confession? Not one of them. Not one could answer. Guys, if I get elected, I'm gonna hold these guys to account. They do not represent the nicest people of West Belfast. They have sold out to the European Union. They have sold out to the nicest people of West Belfast. They're a disgrace. And I will hold these guys to account. I get their photograph taken. They're an absolute disgrace. Alright, that's all I'm going to say. Wish us well, lads. All the best.